Dear friends, it's 11th of December, I'm sorry. If you're wondering why most of my last videos have been videotaped in my car, not in my office or in other locations, it's because I've been very busy running around setting up a new business, a pizzeria that we just opened, me and my partner, yesterday. It's opened with my wife a coffee house a year ago. We got our pizzeria up, hoping to get another pizzeria going within another half a year, something along the lines of Papa John's. So, for those of you, my dear friends, who are still believing in the myth of the Russian economy being in collapse, people don't eat pizza. People don't eat out when they're poor, when the economy's collapsing. They don't buy coffee. Well, they may still buy coffee of some kind of brand, but they're not going to go to a cafe or coffee house. And they don't go buy pizza and pay for delivery to have it to their house because they're feeling, poor. People don't do that. So you can see, again, all lies. But what's new? I want to thank the retired dear Chancellor Merkel for telling the truth finally. Well, it wasn't a truth that was overly shocking. I think anybody with half a brain knew it. They may not have been able to prove it, at least here in Russia. But she finally just, admitted what should have been blatantly obvious. And what was blatantly obvious was what she said. And I quote in this case, the Minsk Accords, those were the accords that Poroshenko signed when he was flat out getting his ass handed to him by the rebels in Lugansk and Donetsk. His army was crushed in the Dolboltsov cauldron, never mind several other smaller cauldrons that crushed other parts of his army. It was a massive surround, encirclement, and just destruction of his forces. And so at that point, the rebels were still being nice. They're letting them leave, minus the weapons. But they tried to bust their way out, so a lot of them got left. Well, I can't say rotting because it's too damn cold for them to rot. Well, they were rotting the next spring, the ones that hadn't gotten buried. Ukraine hasn't exactly been collecting its dead for the last 8 years either when it can avoid it. Because, if you collect the dead, then you have to admit that they're dead, and then you have to actually pay the families by their contract, what was promised. Now that Ukraine is, by Western values, actually wants to do that. But Merkel admitted that from day one, this was all a lie. They were never meant, Poroshenko said he was never going to fulfill anything he signed. But the hope was, to some degree, the French and the Germans were co-signatories there to make sure that the Ukrainian government actually did something. We were putting some kind of pressure on them. But Merkel came out and finally said it, that no, not only were they not, it was not only was it never the plan for them to force the Ukrainians to actually follow what they signed, but this was all a ruse to buy them time to build up the Ukrainian army and launch a war against Russia. Thank you, Merkel. To all you Western morons who still think that your bullshit governments in D.C., Berlin, London are in shock and awe that, the evil Russians are aggressors. Welcome to reality. You are the aggressors. Your government is the aggressors, and you support that government one way or the other. You've been responsible for an 8-year civil war. You've been responsible for this war now. You and every last one of you that pays your taxes, doesn't go out in the street and say, no, we don't want this war, we don't want our government supporting it. Your governments have done everything humanly possible to start World War III. By other people's hands. They're happy to fight to the last Ukrainian. After all, it's just Russians with with their brains washed. They're not real humans anyways, not to your cultures and not to your governments. Welcome to reality. I mean, that is what it is. So at least finally it's out in the truth. Thank you, Merkel. And she did it on television, she did it in an interview, and that was great. Walk that back. She was chancellor for all the 16 years in Germany. That's right, the big queen. Oh, but Macron remembered that Putin needs safety guarantees. You know, Putin's the biggest, number one criticism of Putin is he's too nice on the West. That's right. Most Russians wanted the West by the throat for half the shit they did over the last 30 years. And the biggest filter between that and keeping peace was Vladimir Putin. And as he said, he was disappointed. And when Putin gets disappointed, that means, really? Yeah, you're fucked. This is going to get escalated. Thank you, Merkel, for at least telling the truth. It should have been obvious to anybody, really. I've been telling everybody since 13, really, when this all started in 2014, including people in power, that you cannot trust the West. We are not human beings to the West. We're animals, white blue-eyed, blonde animals to the West. Nothing more. Try to treat us just like they treated the Indians with some beads. And finally, at least somebody in that leadership said the truth. So no, there's not going to be any compromises. There's not going to be any peace. There's going to be peace on our terms. And that terms is the destruction of the Ukrainian army, the Ukrainian government, and a new government that's going to be set by us, not by the West. And if it means the West gets involved in World War III, then bloody hell, be it so, it'll be World War III. And everybody's cities will be burning. And it'll be a warm winter after all. Because that's how it is. The Russian women and children have been murdered by the West and its proxy Nazis for 8 years. 8 fucking years. They're swimming in blood. And that Germany's freezing now is more than just deserves for what Germany, the French, and the rest of the little bastards of Europe did for their whore and the little whores that for their pimp in D.C. And that pimp is smacking them and raping them right now. Boy, they deserve that. They deserve that a lot. And they're not going to get anything from us either. Europe's going to third world status, and I can't wait to see it because nobody deserves it more than Europe does. Washington is a pariah state from day one. It's been eating everything around them. Everybody should know that by now. For God's sakes, out of the entire American history, has been 12 years without war. And Rome had a better record than that. But Europe? Yeah. You deserve what you're going to get. You deserve the cold that's there right now, the lack of energy, and everything else. Nobody deserves it more than Europe. So, thank you, Merkel. Thank you very much. For once, somebody told the truth in the West. It's rare. The only people I'm sorry that are suffering are the Hungarians and the Serbs. They're the only ones that don't deserve to suffer out of the entire European mass of gerbils living in their big gerbil cage. Their big freezing gerbil cage. They're pretty soon going to be eating each other. And good luck with that. Because we Russians, we are not Europeans. We own a third of Europe. We were here long before most of your ancestors ever came out of northern Iran. That is by genetics. We're the R1A group. Hopla group. We've been here for 3,000 years. 2,000 at least. Long before the Germanics immigrated in. Long before the Scandinavians. Well, Latins, maybe. There are only parallels. We are not Europeans. You know why we're not Europeans? Because we have a concept of justice, we have a concept of honor, we have a concept of dignity, and we believe in God, Christ. All things foreign for you people. God bless.